Y'all know I gotta fix myself. I got curls popping out of everywhere. Hey, Joe. So we're about 5 minutes in, so we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you that are just now joining us, I am Allison Johnson, aka Allie J _ to the max. Obviously, that is my Instagram handle. And I am the host of the Black Light series here on Art Show Chicago. So this is our second episode. Whoop, 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 whoop. You know, I'm going to have little background noises and stuff for y'all soon. You know, just give me time. But we are here again to just, we got open floor, guys. You know how we do here at the Black Light series. So just a recap of last week's episode with the gorgeous Messiah. Last week we talked about being a woman of color in the modeling industry. Well, hey boy, hey, you know, we got a hey girl, hey. So that was our last week. I feel like that was a phenomenal discussion. We definitely touched on a lot of things that people don't want to touch on. And we touched on some things that a lot of people did not know. And that's what we're here for. We are here to educate. And we are here to just, you know, get everybody on the same page. I feel like majority of us were fighting the same battle. And we are, you know, we want the same outcome. Majority of us. I'm not going to say all, but majority. And we want the same outcome. So I definitely think that we are on the right path. Today's guest, we have Christian Gist. I feel like I said it right. And she not only is a mother, she is a writer. She is an educator. Like, of course, we as women, we have so many roles. And I feel like Christian really embodies that. I just feel like we just multifaceted, multi-talented people. You know what I'm saying? You got to have your hand in a little bit of everything. So one thing that I just want to go ahead and touch on really fast. So I really want to dedicate this episode to Toyin. As many people know and many haven't, she was a activist for Black people. It's specifically definitely for Black men, and I would love to dedicate this episode to her. She recently passed away, and I don't know. She, lived in the city where I graduated from, Tallahassee, Florida. And I just feel like I need to say something. So for Black women, we are the most imitated, but the most underappreciated, and we're not protected. We are so unprotected as women and as women of color. So to hear that, she was, at first she was missing, and then come to find out that she was murdered, it's just like, wow, she was really out here fighting the fight, and she was making her voice heard, and she was letting people know that what's going on in our world is not what needs to be going on, and she was just trying to, have her voice, and to have that snatched so quickly. She was only 19 years old. So this episode is dedicated to you, gorgeous. You did the darn thing while you were here 19 years on this earth. So what more could we ask of you? Rest in peace. And at this time, Christian baby girl, go ahead. Let's bring you in so we can get the ball rolling. As I take a sip. Joel told me that when I drink out of the straw like that, that means I'm about to get ready to say something reckless. So, I'm with it. All right, we're waiting. Hey,
Hi.
what's happening? What's going on?
Nothing much. Just enjoying the bedtime for Lennon.
Honey, you better let him know. She has a little one at home, y'all, and we talked about all week if he was going to be awake for our episode, and as of right now, he's still asleep.
He may wake up. You never know.
Y'all know I'm always for the kids, so bring him on. He might have something important he has to say, so why not? So, honey, let the people know a little bit about you. Let's tell them. Let's dive right in.
Oh my God, I feel like I'm so bad at intros. Whenever it's like your first day at work, like tell me myself, I'm like, I have no idea who I am.
Oh, I'm the same way. I don't say anything. I just be like, my name is Allison. I'm from here, and I want this job. So
Yeah, I was born on this day. And I'm here. I like money, so that's what I'm here.
That's it. I got bills to pay, so I'm here.
Exactly. I'm Christian. I am a mom. My little boy Lennon is almost 7 months old, which is crazy to think.
Right.
I am a writer. I think I've probably been a writer more than I've done anything. I worked in education for most of my career, and then recently, a year ago, switched to sales and working as a stylist at Trunk Club, and that is how I met Laura, and then got involved with all of this.
Small world.
I've always had, I guess, like you said it perfectly, like a foot in both worlds, a multitasker of extremes. I'm someone who loves business and data and all that kind of stuff, but I also will be happy at a museum looking at art all day, or painting or writing or doing whatever. So that's just who I am as a person. I live in Ohio right now, so quarantining here.
My goodness.
Yeah, I grew up here, and now I'm back.
I feel like I've been, obviously, as a flight attendant, I feel like I've been to every state so far. So I was probably there, but didn't realize where I was.
That's a very Ohio vibe, because you can, I feel like, forget.
Yeah, you remember Vegas and, LA and all these crazy big cities. I love the small cities, so.
We're not memorable. We are, but we're not. It's like Ohio and Indiana. I feel we're just hey, we're here.
Right? We're just hanging out. We're here. So I feel like let's talk motherhood. So okay. I definitely, I think one thing that has come to the forefront with everything that's going on in our world right now is being Black, but not only being Black, but being a Black woman, and then also being a Black woman who is having children or has had children or, you know, is pregnant. And I think one thing that I've seen a lot of, and it's been a big conversation and people have really started to take notice, is the fatality rate for women of color when it comes to pregnancies. And it's just how many women of color die during childbirth versus any other race is like astronomical.
Especially in this country.
Yes. What is it with America? They just don't like us for real.
Wild.
Like, what? And it's
what
crazy because even my sister's own story, she's one of those people where when she had a C-section, I think it was with my nephew, like she woke up.
Oh, wow.
Like,
oh no.
The anesthesia wore off.
Mm-hmm.
So she could literally like feel them. And I was like, oh my God.
Never.
Jesus, that is my worst fear. I don't want to feel nothing.
That you should. Actually, when I went into labor, I thought I was gonna go natural. Like, I think I said that the whole pregnancy until like 2 minutes before. I was like, absolutely not. I'm not gonna be a hero. What do you got? And they and I had to wait like an extra 45 minutes to get the anesthesiologist there after they like ran some more labs.
Oh,
and I was just like, where is this person? Anybody can do it. Who has a needle?
And I'm literally that person. Like, whenever I have kids, you know how us young people, I'm gonna do a home birth, and you know, me and my husband, we're gonna see, gonna be rubbing my back, and I'm gonna be bouncing on the ball. Now, I am a realist. I know it's gonna hurt. Okay, I'm not gonna sit here and be like it's gonna be all, you know, I'm gonna push twice, and it's gonna fall right out. Like,
yeah, I did push 3 times, so I was like weird that way.
You heard that, Jesus? Did you hear? 3 times, she said.
3 times, but they say like you forget after you have a child, you forget all the pain. No, I remember every bit.
They lied.
Yeah, and I was like, why do people do this multiple times? Like, people have multiple children.
Yeah, naturally. People have 7 and 8.
Yeah, they're crazy. But for actually the night I found out I was pregnant, I watched this show, like one of the medical dramas, and it was about Black female mortality and pregnancy. And I was like, oh crap. And then I remember like going to meet with my OB, and I was just like, Black mothers die at like an alarming rate. Do you know this? And he was like, yes, I know this. And I ended up having a high risk pregnancy. And so I actually had 4 or 5 doctors on my case at any moment. And it was like a couple different specialties, and then a couple, like 2 OBs and 1 maternal fetal medicine. But even with all of that, like, they were all great. But the biggest thing for me was advocating for myself over and over and over again. Literally being like, I don't feel well. I'm going to the lab. Like, this is what we're going to do. And they really had it handled. You know, I wasn't like angry about anything. I wasn't like blaming them. I was just like, I don't feel well. I mean, like, this is something that's going on with me. Like, can you guys check this out? And 9 times out of 10, every single time I did that, something was wrong, and then we had to adjust. But...
And I think for not even just women of color, just women in general, you have to be your own advocate, because you know you better than anybody on the planet. Yeah. So we have to definitely, like you said, anytime you felt like something was wrong and you told them, guess what? Something was wrong. So you have to go with that gut feeling. You really have to go with, okay, I know this isn't right, so I need to say something. Like, I think sometimes we get so scared to address it. Yeah. And it's like, oh, well, they're the experts. They went to school for this. Well, honey, everybody that has a degree ain't that bright upstairs, doctor or not, because I've met some that are sketchy.
Exactly.
They make you question some things.
And some of them, I mean, for my OB, we were dealing with an issue with my liver. He knows OB really well, but in the way that my case presented itself, even my like hepatologist was like, I've never seen this before. I'm gonna go ask this person. And he was like, I don't want you to feel. I was like, no, please go ask someone if you don't know. Like, advocate for me. Like, call all the people that you need to. And you just have to keep speaking up, even like postpartum. Yeah. I was like, okay, what do I need? I was like, I gotta go see my therapist. Like, having a baby made me feel like I got hit by a truck.
Yes, and literally,
even though I knew it was coming.
Yeah, one of course, everybody watches Insecure.
Yeah.
Duh. But they definitely touched on that this season with one of the characters. It was like, I don't know if I've ever really see, especially when I feel like, and I can only speak for women of color because, honey, I am a woman of color. So I feel like when it comes to women of color, especially when we're pregnant and we're addressing, even after, pregnancy, postpartum, people look at Black women and think that we are so strong. So they're just like, oh, well, it might not be a big of a deal as you think it is. So yeah, it's not that. And a lot of things get swept under the rug. And you read so many stories of Black women who, passed away during childbirth. And it's like the warning signs. It's all of the things that, their family members and their husbands were like, we kept telling y'all something was wrong, but you guys just swept it under the rug. And yes, Black women, honey, we are the strongest of the strong. Okay. We are, I feel like, the strongest beings out there.
Yeah.
And it's because we have to be, because not only do we have to be strong for us and strong for our families, but as you can see, we have to be strong for the Black men out there and our Black sons and our Black daughters. And we have to, it's a full circle thing for us. We're protecting not only ourselves, but our entire culture.
Yeah.
And to have that on your back every day is just like, whoa.
It's exhausting.
What? Girl, when I tell you, I'm tired.
Yeah. Like, I'm like constantly just like, I'm like, let me just watch like the Golden Girls for a day. Honey, so
I will sit up in here and watch RuPaul's Drag Race and Bernie Mac all day.
It's so good. It's such a good show.
Oh my God, it's so good.
I mean, but you are like, you're constantly dealing with the weight, and I feel like you're constantly like in a dance between, holding the weight, like for your family, for your friends, for Black men, for like your children, and then in this like dance with the other world, I would say, like white people, of like not to be perceived as angry or upset or
having to, I call it dimming your light.
Yeah.
Because there's like a meme that's going around, and I think it was a post that someone made, and it's just like, have you ever asked the Black women in your life how much they have to disguise? So from your hair, from the way that you talk, the way that you dress, the way that you walk, the way that you, like, everything. Have you ever asked the Black women in your life, like, girl, you doing okay? Because I know you've had to go to corporate America for 5 days this week, and you done had your afro in a tight bun, or you got your weave in, honey, you ready to rip that junk out. Like, how are you doing? And I think for me, I'm different because I was taught to embrace. So even at my interview to become a flight attendant, so many women of color go and get weaves or straighten their hair. Honey, they got that afro. I pulled it up into a nice professional top bun.
Lovely.
And y'all got that afro puff.
Yeah.
Y'all are going to get this, whether you like it or not. And baby, I got hired. So I don't want nobody to ever say, well, you were a minority hire. And what's your point?
I'm still doing the job just as well.
Baby, and still getting paid to do it. So
yeah. Sip the straw.
People love to tell you that you're a minority hire. And God, what was I have been just watching so many things, and I don't even remember who said it, but when people love to say, oh, I was watching Becoming. Shout out to Michelle Obama. And she was literally,
every time I see them. I can't.
Girl,
it's almost it's hard.
Time. And she was literally talking about how, of course, she went to Princeton, and they said, she was a minority hire. And she was like, well, so we're just going to ignore the athletes or the legacies or the people who literally just had enough money to get into college. Like, are those not affirmative action? Like, acceptance? Are we just going to ignore all of that?
Yeah.
So I think people get so hung up on affirmative action and, oh, you're only here because you're the Black vote. And it's like, what's wrong with that? Am I supposed to be upset because they wanted to give me a full ride scholarship to one of the top universities in the world? Nah, I'm good. Like, I love being black. I don't know what y'all was talking about.
Yeah, you're like, I'll take, and it's really a what you do when you're there.
There you
You
go.
know,
That's
like it's
exactly
like
what she said.
if like if this opens door for me, sure, because many of us have had doors opened for us for whatever reason, for privilege or for not. But once you're there, I think that I always tell any interns that I've ever had, do the things that you know how to do really well. Show up on time, like be prepared, submit stuff on time. Like the things that you can do well right now, do them. And that'll take you way farther than maybe you don't have the knowledge right away. Maybe you don't like know how to fit into the scene right away.
Mm-hmm.
But you can, no one's gonna work harder than me. No one's
Period.
gonna like be as curious as I am. No one's gonna try and build those relationships like I am. And no one's gonna have, there's no backup plan. I have nothing, I have everything to lose here. So you have to show up and be ready to succeed.
And I think even, I was always groomed on, honey, you're black. Remember that you're black because you're going to have to work twice as hard as, say, your white counterpart, and just to get half the respect that they get.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so true. We're working twice as hard and not even meeting, we're not even all the way there. We're meeting us halfway.
Yeah.
And like somebody said, y'all had a 400-year head start.
400 years with the worst Monopoly game ever. I love it.
Y'all have 400-year head start, so I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, but I think too, like you end up in these roles where you're underpaid, like you're overqualified and you're underpaid, or you're like doing like, you know, either the same or better than someone else, but you get reprimanded
Yep.
for like the tiniest mistakes or the tiniest things or feedback that is probably biased.
Oh,
And,
yes.
you know,
Because any job that I ever had, I always ended up, before I left, I was in some type of leadership position.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I worked in retail, and then, I worked in the restaurant world before I became a flight attendant and moved to Chicago. So, I was being groomed to be to be a manager within each of the companies that I worked for.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was just like, I can't tell you how many times I got pulled to the side, or we needed to have a meeting, or we needed to have a conversation about something that I said. And it's just like, wait, are you doing this to the person who literally just comes to work, does the bare minimum, and rarely shows up on time, and they just get, like, y'all act like y'all don't see them when they walk through the door late every day, but you want to come talk to me about how I gave direction?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's one thing that I had to realize was, it's not me, it's them. That's your perception of how I talk and how I express myself. I'm not raising my voice.
Yeah.
I'm not being disrespectful. I'm from the South. It was always yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. Always. So when people would come and say something to me, I used to just look at them like, this can't be happening. Like, y'all cannot. Y'all must have me confused with somebody else. Because, yes, I have a strong personality. I will never back down from that. Mm-hmm. But when I work, baby, I work hard.
Yeah.
So for any time that I got pulled to the side, it was just like, oh, y'all don't appreciate me. And it didn't take long before I was gone.
Well, I think that that's actually how I approach writing. So when I write an essay or something and submit it, I honestly, like, as long as I get it out, I'm good. I'm done. My work here is done. If you read it and you love it, that's great. I'm so glad you loved it. If you read it and you hate it, that's great. I'm glad you read it and, form this criticism on it. How you feel has nothing to do with me. So, and I really don't take praise to heart as much as I don't take criticism to heart. Because if you allow one to build you up, you're obviously going to allow the other one to tear you down. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to professional feedback, sometimes I'm just like, okay, cool. And leave it there. And it's not that I turn it off and don't listen to it. I listen to it. But I really take it with like, do you find this to be true for yourself, Christian? Or do you find this to be the opinion of someone else? And, how you can change by your actions may affect them and their opinion of you. Mm-hmm. But at any point, how you feel has little to nothing to do with me. because you have to be really confident and strong in yourself to even come to that point. But I've seen people, get one bit of like constructive feedback and just flail apart. And I'm just like, yeah.
What? Yeah. And like, oh, and just a heads up, if you guys have any questions, there's like a little section that you can submit those questions. The last like 10-15 minutes, we're going to answer those. We're going to address them. Anything you guys can think of that, hey, from last week, this week, if you guys want to touch on it, ask those questions. But that's one thing, and I'm still learning that. I think criticism has been something that I've had to, and it all depended on like what place it came from. Did that criticism come from, like, was it constructive criticism? Like, I know your potential and I know you can do better, so let's address this. Or did it come from, oh, she's just an angry Black girl, so yeah, she probably doing too much, so let me address this. But it really has nothing to do with her. It's just my perception. And I had to like decipher the two. Was it A or was it B? Or was it a mixture of both? Because, some of those prejudices are sprinkled up in there sometimes, and people perceive you to be one way, but you really weren't. And, growing up, heck, I'm a Navy brat, so I lived all over the world. And it's just like people, oh, you talk so white. Well, what is that?
Yeah, you're like, is it like exert? How do you expect me to speak?
Because I'm also from the backwoods of Georgia, and I can make a country for you in 2 seconds. You gotta look. I got a professional, I got a social, and I got the country. It just depends on where I am and who are you to get which one. I have many different personalities. Okay.
Yeah, and doesn't everybody doesn't everybody have a professional side, or shouldn't they?
There you go.
A professional side.
There we go.
And your homegirl side, that you're just like, oh, I'm just hanging out, having a glass of wine. And I don't like to mix the two. I've had like bosses that want to be best friends, and I'm like, you're my boss.
I definitely learned my
lesson.
lesson.
That's over.
Like, I had one boss, and she was a honey, and she wanted to act like she was Kiki and my friend. When I tell you she screwed me in the end, I was like, yeah, we are always going to keep those platonic. Your manager, we're just going to.
Yeah. I need the two separate,
It has to be, because you can get those lines blurred and then you be the one looking stupid. And nobody has time for that. So this memoir, let us know. Come on, girl. Spill the tea on this memoir.
Oh, goodness. This has been in the work for so long. It wasn't until I had my son that I was like, oh, it's complete. Like the story in my life was complete. But it's a book about love.
Oh,
and it's not about the love story of, guy meets girl. And it's kind of like a girl meets lots of guys and then realizes she needs to love herself.
That's usually the way it happens.
Yeah, and then you're just like, but then it's, well, what does that mean? Like, what does loving yourself mean? What does it look like? How does it feel? What are the actions? What do you do differently when you love yourself versus when you are just like out there looking for that fairy tale kind of romance? And then what are all the different types of love? And I think it wasn't until I had Lennon that I was like, there's a whole group of people called mothers who are running on this next level drug of love. And it's impossible. And I think that when it comes to like Black motherhood, I was like, I don't love my son any more or any less than any mother does. But I think it doesn't depend on your race. Like, we all love our kids, but it's like, why are this group that's gone through this excruciable pain for centuries and centuries, and like, what does that look like? And how do you cope with that? How do you prepare for those sorts of things?
Oh, that's heavy. That's so true. Like, how
not to drop it on you,
girl, you just boom. But it's like, yeah, how do you prepare for something like that? Because I don't ever want to get into the mindset that when, Black people are brought into this world, that we are born into a disadvantage. I'm not going to say that we have equal opportunity. I definitely think that's, right. It's too much. but I do think we have opportunity. And the gap with the opportunity and like the success of the opportunity is there are so many disparities between the gap between the potential of the person and the actual success of the person, because as we look at our educational systems, it's just like I feel like we failed just as a country. Like America has one of the worst like educational systems that I've ever seen. And I've been to schools in different countries, so I can definitely speak to that firsthand knowledge. It's just like, where did we go wrong here?
Like, and it's did we fail or was it built this way?
There you go.
Because the farther you go back into it, people who have had money have always been able to afford a great education for their children. But when I came to the public school system and everybody was like, okay, cool, we can send our kids to school now. We're not like farming like we used to. we got time. Then it became this game. And it became a power struggle, and it became a for-profit, and it's just it's sad because you can like you said, you can go out there and look at other schools in other countries who are doing a fantastic job.
Like job.
Everything is there, everything's supported, the kids are well prepared for college and life and what comes next. And then you come here and there's schools and you're like, wait, so like your kids don't have books?
Wait, like your kids are sharing books, like multiple kids to one book, and it's like,
and so, it's not uncommon, like lunch debt, like like not having like resources.
Lunch debt is a thing. Wow. That literally should tell you everything that you need to know. Like, you mean to tell me that y'all are like, you're like a bill collector when it comes to lunch for children who are at school?
Yeah.
They're here to get an education, but they can't do that because now somehow, some way, they have to pay for lunch. And yes, hungry. There's programs for kids to get free lunch, but it's like, shouldn't every child be afforded that opportunity? Because, and it's crazy because when coronavirus happened, schools shut down, and a lot of times, majority of the time, a lot of kids the only meal that they were getting was at school. So for that to be gone, it's like, what are we going to do once this is all over, once the world opens back up, once these kids go back to school? What are we going to do? Because it can't continue going on like it has been. Because like you and I discussed earlier, like the CDC guidelines, you guys want these kids to be 6 feet apart. Well, you go to the hood somewhere and you got these classrooms that are falling apart and you got one teacher and 35 students. How in God's name are you going to have them 6 feet apart? These guidelines aren't, like, you have them out there, but they're not meant for everybody.
Yeah.
They're only meant for a certain group of people going to certain schools. Because you cannot put these guidelines out and really think to yourself like, oh yeah, every school is going to be able to abide by this. Every school is going to be able to afford this. Because people are taking into consideration funding. Like, you want all of these new cleaning and, masks and this and this. And it's like, where's this money coming from?
Hopefully from the police budget.
Come on now, let's take some of that. Let's just go ahead and just, take our hands and dig deep out of that and that's what people need to realize when people say defund the police. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about taking that money that y'all are putting into all these nice fancy cars that these police officers are driving.
Oh my God.
Are you kidding me? Y'all are driving like state-of-the-art vehicles here, and we have kids who go to school hungry and leave hungry. And we're all living in the same world, and we're living in the same communities.
Yeah. I once got pulled over in Indiana like 3 or 4 years ago, and it was like a red Mustang. It was a really nice car, and I was like, and then I just got a warning because I think I was going like 74 in a 70 zone, but
So he was
terrified.
just having a bad day.
Yeah, but I was like, before you leave, is that your personal vehicle? Did you guys get to decide like how did you
How
get?
does this work?
Have you been on the force? How long? Like, is this like a perk, like a bonus? Like, and he was like, oh
No.
yeah, no, we got to like choose our car, and I always wanted like a red Mustang, and so that's the car that I got. And I was like, all right, well, have a nice
Meanwhile,
day.
I'm out here living paycheck to paycheck, and I need a new engine in my car, and we barely making it. But you guys have picked the car that you want.
I
So,
know, and I was just like that, like, and that's crazy. I don't understand why hospitals are struggling, why schools are struggling, why streets have potholes, but never has a police officer had a shortage for anything. They're not asking for donations, right now. They're not like, please donate your riot gear that you have on hand.
right, like, and that's like, come on, like when schools shut down, people are out here donating to food banks and food
Yeah.
pantries, and okay, we're gonna have lunch here for the kids, and we're gonna be open from this time to this time. Not once have the police come out and say, hey y'all, we're missing a meal, or we need gas, or nah, y'all are good. Y'all are still getting all the perks that you got before, but kids are out here starving to death because lunch was the only meal that they got in a day. Or families where parents have lost their jobs and are, and everyone's like, oh, well, we can all just get unemployment. Okay, we have to realize it ain't that easy to get for some people. And there have been a lot of people who still haven't gotten anything from unemployment. And they lost it. Like, coronavirus hit months ago. And people have not seen a dime.
It's just so much work. And you're like, how do you find the energy to go through all of that to get something that you're like, can we live on this? Can you like provide for your family on this money?
It's like, you can't even get a hold of somebody if you got questions. You're sitting on hold for a week.
Oh my God. My worst fear and like most anxiety comes from having to call a government office with a question. Like I had to call Illinois about my driver's license, and I was just like
having heart palpitations. Honey,
yeah.
I will do whatever I gotta do to not have to call the people on the phone.
Like I went to the DMV. It took 2 hours to get one driver's license.
It's, man, that junk ain't even work. It's like, do I really need it? Is it really, really worth it?
You're like, should I just wait for them to send me a letter? Like, if they wanted it.
If they wanted it, they could have been asked for it. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a scary thing to think that a lot of people aren't educated when it comes to these topics. A lot of people aren't educated about what it means to defund the police. A lot of people aren't educated with, oh yeah, kids are going to go back to school. Well, how is that going to happen? People just aren't educated. We're just, taking it for what it is. And we're just, oh, well, yeah, I read this article, so it has to be true. We live in a time where, oh, I read it on the internet, so it like has to be a thing.
Yeah.
And like, I've seen people post articles of things from 2 years ago, and I'm like, you do realize it's no longer relevant.
And schools, I think, are something you don't know about until you really go into. I went to like a Catholic private all-girls school with 105 girls in my class. There wasn't much that we ever wanted for. If it was like some unrealistic expectation to have like our prom at the top of Tower City.
Right? It's like, come on now.
So it was something like that we thought was a big deal, but it wasn't. We're like, we want to do this play, and we're like holding protests, which was great. You got to give it to him. But then, like when I started working in schools, I was like, what? Like this is your lunch candy? Like this is your school environment. Like this is what your classroom looks like. Your teacher's exhausted. How are there 65 of you in this room right now? And exactly. you're like, oh my God, like people, and it's sad that it's that way. It doesn't have, like, none of this has to be this way.
Nope.
We've chosen to make it this way, or our ancestors have chosen. And I think that this is the first generation that's really standing up, and we're just like, it does not have to be this way, and we're not going to accept it.
Yep.
The way that it is. And I can't accept it the way that it is for my child. Like, I don't want Lennon to go into this world and then be like, Mom, why didn't you do something? It's like, I'm going to do what I can, anything that I can, talk to people, foreign groups have the conversations so we can try and make it just a little bit better. It doesn't have to, like, we don't need to have like the Christian Gay Society for Education, but but can we,
We
like,
don't need our own organization, but we can make it work.
yeah, like, can I make my little piece of the world a little bit better? I think that's how you start.
I agree. Okay, so I see we have 2 questions. Let me see how this works here. Where the heck are they? One day I'll really learn how to work Instagram.
You waved at me and I was like, girl, I don't know what that
What does this mean?
It's like, how do you send a specific wave?
I can't. I cannot. Oh my God. One day I'm going to be like texting. I see the notification for like, hold on, let me see what's going on here.
Or you guys, if you have questions, you can write them in the chat.
Right. We are, girl, because.
Yes, I have seen people that have tried to call unemployment every day. And it's a long.
It's crazy. Like, I see the notification that says 2 questions, but like I'm tapping it and nothing. So whoever asked the question, if you guys want to type that out, and I guess like I'll figure this out next week. It's just not working for us. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, I feel like every day I wake up and like the weight on my shoulders just gets heavier.
It's heavy, but I think that, I mean, I'm just like, let me reset my nervous system. Like, what can I do right now? Like, more than now than ever, what can I do to reset, my nervous system? And it's like, sometimes it's going on a walk with my son, playing with him, reading books. Other times it's just turning off my phone, deleting Twitter.
That's what I need to do, just turn on my phone, because I messed around and watched LA 92, the documentary on Netflix yesterday. Yeah, I shouldn't did
that. You gotta follow it up with something good.
Girl, okay. I was literally like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And it's like, I knew all of this information before, like I knew all of this stuff, but just to see it all like replayed, it was just like, we have, like, it's a never ending cycle. Like, the young man that was just killed in Atlanta a few days ago. It's like, what? I just want to know when Black people became such a threat. Like
16, 19, I don't know.
And I get it, because, I just recently, and I wish they had more seasons, but Underground with Journey Smollett. And that show, wow, deserved way more than 2 seasons. It was on, I think, UPN, but they actually have it on Hulu. So anybody, you guys need to watch Underground. And it really, it really opened up my eyes to, we have really been fighting this fight for years.
Centuries.
Truly. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, and I think it gets a little bit better. There's a little hope in each generation, but
I feel like there's hope, but I also feel like it's just a never-ending cycle. Like, it's just, because even watching LA 92 and to see, murder or, beating all caught on camera, to being arrested, to, getting the charges, and then we get to the court and then we get not guilty. Or like the young lady who was killed in LA, who was shot by the Korean shop owner in the back of the head. For her to be found guilty of, which I feel like is an insult, involuntary manslaughter, whatever. And, that sentence carries up to 16 years. And for the judge to be like, well, you know what? She's not a danger to society, so we're going to give her community service and no jail time. Wait, girl, what?
Crazy.
Y'all caught on camera her pull a gun from underneath the counter and shoot that 16-year-old child as she was walking away. What? And it's like, what more can we do? The young man shot in Atlanta the other day, shot twice in the back, running away.
Running for his life.
And for people to really be out here like, he should have just listened to the police. If you look at the body cam, he was being combative. Honey, you know how many white people I done see? Y'all drive off and do high-speed chases, and they just take y'all peacefully.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, and that's the thing that you can see, like, white kids in school talk back to the teacher,
Girl,
and you're just like, I wish I would.
girl, I will never forget. Like, there, and I went to private school for 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. There were 2 teachers specifically. It was one, she was my Latin teacher. She would send me to the principal's office every chance she got. Like, the principal would literally see me and be like, Allison, what? I'm like, man, I didn't even say nothing. I just looked at the lady and she was like, you're being disrespectful. And it's like, so now I can't even look at you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had another, it was the same school. I had another teacher. And, you know, now that I see that she's a Trump supporter, I should have known better.
Yeah.
But now seeing that she's a Trump supporter now, it totally explains the way that she was with me. It was like, it was always a fight. Like, I think one day I had like my head down on the desk and she called my name and I like, you know, looked up halfway and she was like, don't you dare look at me. Like, she made a scene in class and people were looking like, girl, did you flicker off or something? Like, yo, I just looked up.
I was just here existing.
Yes. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
It's always been a fight for me, man. Always. They always made it a point to like want to address me about. I'm like, I'm the child, you're the adult. Leave me alone.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's a question from Joe.
Where is it?
So where does a lot of your inspiration come from when you're writing?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It comes from my life.
Plain and simple.
It is. I write a lot of times in like question form, and a lot of them are questions to myself or to whoever. And then from there, it just kind of spurs on. A lot of, I guess, my style of writing can come from poetry or music. Mm-hmm. It's really in, like, I love the way that words, you know, kind of flow and have different meanings and take on different things. And so that's always kind of just been like, I'll like read a book of poetry, like sometimes like different Bibles or religious texts too have always been like inspiration for me. And then from there, it's just kind of flows. I think I have to always have some feeling behind it. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of times I may like pace around the room. A lot of it comes like when I'm in movement, if I'm walking down the street or on the bus or on the plane or the worst place driving. And then you're just like, oh yeah, like
I need to write this down.
I need to write this down right now. Sometimes like when I'm holding Latin and I'm like, oh, that's an idea. And then I just like kind of go from there. I have thousands of little notes in my phone, thousands of journals like everywhere. And some stuff I come back to a lot, and then other times I just leave it, and I'm just like, that's really deep. We're gonna leave that there, and someone can find it when I die.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm not like a writer, but a lot of like my inspiration and stuff, I find like I have notes in my phone from like years ago, and I'm like, when in God's name did I write this? Mm-hmm. And it's just like little random things that I write down, and I'm like, oh, you know, maybe I can like put this all together. Maybe not. You know, I don't feel like it's that deep for me though.
Do it, whatever. You know, like, start small. Like I started with little bits here and there that I submitted to now like working on this book, and that is a journey. The memoir is like, it's hard. You don't want to write your diary. Mm-hmm. And there's a fine line between writing your diary and then writing something. You don't want to write for someone else. You want to write for yourself. So it's a fine line. Yes. That you like are always just like going upon of like, how do I get this out there?
Oh yeah. And then Joe also had another question. He said, I was able to get the questions to finally pop up.
Oh yay.
He said, what is lunch debt? So lunch debt is, I know for, so I went to, majority of my schooling was in Florida, and that was just about junior high school. When I got to Public school is when it was totally different than what it was in private school. So you have like a lot, like they give you a number, you have a lunch number, or they just look it up by name. And whatever food you get, you know, you're charged for that. So you either put money in like your account and they just take it from that each time you buy something, or like, you know, if you get to the end of that month or the end of that money and you know, get lunch and it's not enough to cover it, then it goes into debt. Now, some people I know, I've heard stories of like lunch, you know, ladies and people who work in cafeteria and things like that will not let you get the lunch unless you have the money to pay for it. And it's like, what? And I've seen, like I saw it a couple times when I was in high school where, you know, kids didn't have enough money and the lunch lady was just like, oh, okay, well, you're not going to eat, you're not going to be able to eat today. You would ask somebody for the money. Whereas, you know, I always had, you know, really nice lunch ladies who were just like, okay, honey, well, just make sure you bring the money like the end of the week, or make sure, you know, replenish your account or whatever. So lunch debt, a lot of students have that. You know, I've watched a couple shows. I think one of my favorite shows of all time being Mary Jane with Gabrielle Union. It was the episode where her brother, who was a recovering addict, his daughter was going to school, and she usually stayed with her mom, but things were going on, so she was staying with her dad. And the principal like took him to the side one day when he brought her to school, and she was like, just so you know, your daughter, she hasn't had any money in her lunch account, so it's just been like a bill. And he was like, oh, okay, sure, like I'll pay it. How much was it? And like he saw how much it was, and it was like, okay, well, I'll let you know when I can pay that, but she's gonna be packing her lunch every day from now on. It's like, they're bill collectors, baby. They want their money.
And it's like, why is that a thing? Like, why does that? I mean, you know, you have people and superintendents making hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. Like, why isn't that going towards this so kids can eat?
Why do athletes make more than the coaches that coach them their entire lives? Mm-hmm. These athletes can go on and make millions, billions of dollars throughout their lifetime in their career. But those coaches that honed those skills and really recognized that you had a talent, like I had teachers who worked 3-4 jobs.
The teachers should make $2 million per year.
Period. Each.
Teachers and doctors. I taught a kindergarten class, and what was I teaching? Money? I think it was money. I think it was just like, this is paper, this is a coin, these represent different things. And like trying to get that to these kids, they were like, what? Especially, and this was like 2017, so they also have seen most of their parents using plastic everywhere they go. So they were just like, I don't get it. Like, no. And it was just like, and I was just like, that's fine. Planted the seed.
Moving on. And that's
see you next
year,
guys.
It's like, our world is so completely backwards. The athletes that, you know, make that much money, and to see my high school gym coach was also the football coach, and he also taught U.S. history, and he also worked somewhere on the weekends. It's like, these people work at 3-4 jobs and won't ever make as much as you make in your first year of being this professional athlete when you sign on that dotted line and sign that contract. Like, these people are literally going to have to break their back for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. And also pay college athletes who are bringing in all this money.
Girl, that's a whole nother story for
that's a whole other life. Things we want to fix in the world.
Started. Honey, do not get me started on how these boys out here driving Challengers and Chargers and Infinity trucks and they got people doing the work for them. But all you got to do, and I'm not saying, I will never discredit an athlete, because the wear and tear that these sports take on their body, like, you're no good by the time you're 40. Like, everything is broken. But, baby, you throwing the football and catching it and dribbling the basketball. Not taking away from your craft, because, baby, I got 2 left feet when it comes to sports. I was only good at volleyball, okay? I was barely good at that. So I was never a sports girl. I
Yeah.
was always, ooh, chorus and the books. I got you. And I was a
Mm-hmm.
social butterfly. That's it. I can't give you much more than
Which I
that.
feel like should
So
be a skill. Like I feel like you should get paid for it and sponsored for
girl, I'm trying to get paid for it now. So come
yeah.
on, the
You
Black
make
Light
the
series. Let's
school.
take off.
What is
So
a
to
school without social
really,
butterflies?
there you go. It should just be an award.
Mm-hmm.
But to see that these young men and women, specifically young men, because I haven't heard of too many you know Allison Felix's running track and field out here driving $100,000 cars. I usually only hear from basketball players, football players,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little soccer star every now and then, maybe. I don't know. I don't follow those sports, but it's like these kids are getting all these perks, and then it can be taken away in the blink of an eye because we all know that stuff is illegal. Except now, I think they just signed something that said these kids can now start earning money and like trademarking their names and stuff like that, which is like y'all about 100 years too late, but
I mean, it's one of those things. Even with like writing, it's so weird to like sell your words.
mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm sure it's the same with like sports, like to sell your performance, like to someone else. It's just weird. Like
It'll put you on display.
mm-hmm.
It is so weird. And I've seen, a lot of celebrities and things are like, oh, well, we need to get these young boys and girls. They need to be going to these historically Black colleges with their talents. Heck yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to sit here and act like, if they go to a historically Black college, that's going to solve everything. Because we all know that historically Black colleges fight harder to not only be accredited and to stay open, but to get those athletes. Because I don't know a historically Black college or university's, football team or basketball team that's like up there. Because I went to FAMU. Everybody went to football games for halftime for the band. Everybody knows the Marching 100.
The party.
Nobody went for the actual game. Like, and whereas we had FSU that was right across the tracks, Florida State University, everybody went for the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they went for because they were a winning team. Like, they had the money to give these young men to be out on those, on those. So, flip it around. Everyone's just looking at my bed.
It's cute. It's made.
Thanks.
That's amazing.
This is my spare bedroom, so it's made, but it's not really made. But and to just see the gap, it's two major universities in one city, but it was so different. Like mm-hmm. the experience was different. The ability to gain access to certain things was different. It was just all like you could just see it. Yeah. It was very clear. And it's just like we've got to get back to money is a great thing, but money isn't everything. We have to get back to, are you willing to sell your soul?
We need like the whole country just needs like morals and values. I feel like if I was president, everybody would go to therapy. You can't come out of your home.
Therapy would be free. These therapists would be making good money too. Free.
Yeah, you can't come out of your home until you're not racist or homophobic.
Oh, child, some people would never make it out.
That covers everything else. And like just be a good person, like we need to put like what do we actually want to build here? Do we just want to make money or do we want to build something? And
I think that's where we are right now is people are still in the mindset of, oh, we just want to make money because all these companies are coming out. Those CEOs are either getting fired, stepping down, or they're getting with the program. And I look at everybody with a side eye who all of a sudden decides to get with the program. Because like people said, Black people have been around since the beginning of time. It's not like we were just born. We didn't all just pop up in America yesterday, okay?
Yeah.
We've been here a long time. So the fact that these companies and stuff, y'all ain't been hip to Black people, I still ain't for you.
And I just, and I've been in so many meetings, on so many committees, on so many panels of and seeing people raise their hands and say, hey, why aren't there any Black people in our C-suite? Why aren't there any leadership positions, that we're able, that we see ourselves in? Why isn't this, like a thing for us, and they get like shot down, slammed down, shut up, and then silently removed.
Girl. Oh my gosh, you have
And
like 17 seconds left.
okay, cool. We'll
Say
do it
what you
again.
want to say, girl. This was lit. This is